The alien princess was nude when I entered her. Shock was clearly evident. Captain Lisa Morales floated through the silent corridor of the derelict ship, her breath fogging the inside of her helmet. The distress signal had been weak, almost ghost-like, but something about it tugged at her gut. Her crew on the Orion had argued against boarding. Protocol warned of unknown biohazards, alien traps, or worse. But Lisa had seen too many ships vanish without a trace to ignore a cry for help. Even one this faint. She pushed open the final hatch and stepped into a chamber unlike anything she had ever seen. The walls shimmered like liquid glass, pulsing with a soft blue light that rose and fell like breathing. The air was warm and carried a scent like rain on stone. And in the center of it all stood a woman tall and slender with skin like polished silver. Her long hair drifted around her as if underwater, though there was no current. She was completely bare. Her wide violet eyes locked onto Lisa with an expression of pure disbelief. Lisa froze. Her training screamed at her to retreat, to raise her weapon. But something in the alien's gaze held her still. There was no threat there, only shock and something deeper, like sorrow. "I mean you no harm," Lisa said slowly, raising her hands, palms out. She kept her voice calm, though her heart pounded so hard she feared the alien could hear it. The woman did not speak with her mouth. Instead, her voice filled Lisa's mind, clear and resonant like wind through crystal chimes. "You are human. Small, fragile, loud. Why have you come?" Lisa swallowed. "We heard your signal. We came to help." The word echoed in her thoughts, laced with bitterness. "Your kind does not help. It consumes. It destroys." "Not all of us," Lisa said firmly. "My crew risked everything to answer your call. If we wanted to take, we would have brought guns, not medkits." The alien studied her for a long moment, then stepped forward. Her bare feet made no sound on the smooth floor. Up close, Lisa saw faint glowing lines tracing patterns across her arms and torso like living tattoos. They shifted from silver to deep indigo as she moved. "My name is Zira," she said. "I am the last of the Kaelari. The ship, the Starweaver, was my cradle, my tomb. I sent the signal not for rescue but as a final memory, so someone would know we existed." Lisa's chest tightened. "You're alone," Zira nodded. "Our empire spanned 1,000 worlds. We sang to the stars and shaped light into cities. But we grew proud. We sought to erase death to perfect life. Instead, we unraveled it. A plague born of our own hands swept through our bloodlines. Only I remained sealed in stasis, waiting for the silence to end." "Why wake now?" Lisa asked. "Because your species echoes ours," she replied. "Your broadcast, your wars, your hunger for more. You stand on the same edge we did. I felt it in your signal. Not just noise, but hope. Fragile but real." Lisa lowered her hands. "We're not perfect. But we're trying. Some of us anyway." Zira reached out and touched Lisa's wrist. The contact sent a warm jolt through her. Suddenly, images flooded her mind. Vast gardens under twin suns, children laughing in floating schools, a people who wove music from starlight. Then darkness, empty cities. "Silence, you carry the same fire," Zira said, withdrawing her hand, "but also the same blindness." Before Lisa could respond, a sharp beep cut through her earpiece. "Captain Morales, urgent transmission. 2 mercenary cruisers just dropped out of warp. They're demanding we hand over the derelict." Lisa's stomach dropped. "Slavers. They must have tracked our comm." Zira's eyes flared violet. "They seek the Starweaver's core. They will tear it apart for weapons. They do not understand its purpose. We have to leave," Lisa said urgently. Now Zira shook her head. "I cannot go. The ship is bound to my life force. If I leave, it dies. If I stay, they will take it and twist its song into screams. There has to be another way." "There is one way," Zira said softly, "but it will change you forever. Tell me, the Starweaver holds the sum of our knowledge, our failures, our wisdom. It can merge with a compatible mind. Yours is strong enough. If you accept the bond, you will carry it within you. But you will also carry its grief, its loneliness, its weight. For the rest of your life." Lisa didn't hesitate. "Do it." Zira placed both hands on Lisa's temples. The chamber light flared white. Pain ripped through Lisa, not sharp but deep, like roots tearing through stone. Memories flooded her, not just images but feelings, centuries of joy, loss, love, regret. She saw the Kaelari's final days, their desperate attempts to save themselves, their quiet acceptance of extinction. And through it all, one truth remained: survival is not conquest. It is balance. When the light faded, Lisa stood alone in the chamber. Zira was gone. The walls dimmed. The hum of the ship softened to a whisper back on the Orion. Her crew stared at her. "Captain, you were only gone 10 minutes, but you look different." Lisa touched her temple. She could feel it now, the Starweaver's presence inside her like a second heartbeat. "The knowledge, the songs, the sorrow, get us out of here," she ordered. Full thrust as the Orion leapt into warp. Lisa watched the view screen. The derelict ship glowed once, then shattered into stardust. Weeks later, she stood before the United Earth Council. She spoke not of power or profit, but of listening, of restraint, of honoring life, not dominating it. Many leaders scoffed. Some walked out, but a few stayed. A few listened. In her quarters that night, Lisa closed her eyes. The Starweaver's song filled her mind, gentle and sad. It was not a burden, but a companion. A reminder that even in the vast dark, someone had cared enough to leave a light, and now she would carry it forward, somewhere beyond the edge of known space. Zyra's spirit smiled. The fire had found a new home, and this time it would not go out. Months passed, and Lisa Morales carried the weight of the Starweaver like a second soul inside her. She no longer needed data pads or screens to access its knowledge. It flowed through her thoughts like a quiet river, ancient, calm, and deep. She remembered Zyra's voice not as a memory, but as a presence, a soft hum beneath her own heartbeat. The council had dismissed most of her warnings, but a small group of scientists and diplomats had listened. They formed a quiet alliance called the Harmony Initiative. Their goal was simple: share the Kailari wisdom without letting it become a weapon. But not everyone wanted peace. Rumors spread through the outer colonies about a human who held alien power inside her. Some called her a prophet. Others called her a threat. And in the shadowed corners of the black market, a man named Garrett Cole began to take notice. He was not a soldier or a politician. He was a collector. He gathered rare things, lost tech, forbidden artifacts, broken minds, and he wanted the Starweaver more than anything. He sent messages disguised as scientific inquiries. He offered credits, resources, even protection. Lisa ignored them all, but Cole did not give up. One night, as the Orion docked at the Neptune outpost for repairs, a fire broke out in Sector 7. It was no accident. Smoke filled the corridors. Alarms wailed, and in the chaos, 3 armed mercenaries boarded the ship. Lisa was in her quarters reviewing star charts when the door hissed open. 2 figures in matte black armor stepped in, weapons raised. Their faces were hidden behind visors, but their intent was clear. "Come with us quietly," one said. "Garrett Cole wants to talk." Lisa stood slowly. She did not reach for her sidearm. She did not need to. The Starweaver stirred inside her like a sleeping cat waking. Warmth spread through her limbs and her vision sharpened. She saw not just the room, but the energy flowing through the air. The heat from the mercenaries' bodies, the tension in their muscles. "I am not going anywhere," she said. The first mercenary lunged. Lisa moved faster than should have been possible. She sidestepped, grabbed his wrist, twisted, and used his own momentum to slam him into the wall. His weapon clattered to the floor. The second fired, but the beam curved slightly as if repelled by an invisible field. Lisa had not planned it, it just happened. The Starweaver had shielded her. She disarmed the second man with a sharp strike to his elbow, then pinned him against the bulkhead. "Who sent you?" she demanded. "Garrett Cole," the man gasped. "He says you're dangerous, that you're hiding alien tech that could end humanity." Lisa released him. "Tell him I'm not hiding anything. I'm protecting it," she called security. The mercenaries were arrested, but Cole vanished like smoke. The incident left Lisa shaken. She realized the Starweaver was not just knowledge, it was changing her. Her reflexes, her senses, her instincts. She was becoming something more than human. Back on Earth, the Harmony Initiative grew slowly. They shared small pieces of Kailari science, clean energy designs, medical techniques that healed without scars. People began to listen. Schools added lessons on cosmic balance. Artists painted murals of silver-skinned beings singing to stars. Hope flickered. But Cole watched from the dark. He hired a hacker named Tina Ross who specialized in neural infiltration. Tina believed the Starweaver was not just data, but a living consciousness. If she could tap into Lisa's mind even for a second, she could copy its core and sell it to the highest bidder. Tina waited for months. She studied Lisa's routines, her sleep patterns, her comms traffic. She learned Lisa visited a quiet garden on Mars every solstice to meditate. That was her chance. On the red planet, under a sky streaked with pink clouds, Lisa sat cross-legged beneath a dome of transparent alloy. Outside, dust swirled in slow spirals. Inside, silence reigned. She closed her eyes and let the Starweaver's song fill her. It was a lullaby of lost worlds and quiet star. Tina struck, then a neural spike disguised as a comms echo pierced Lisa's implant. For one terrifying second, her mind went blank. Images flashed. Kaleidoscopic cities, burning skies, 1,000 voices screaming. The Starweaver recoiled like a wounded animal. Lisa gasped and opened her eyes. Tina stood 10 meters away, holding a device that glowed faintly red. "You should not be here," Lisa said, her voice low and sharp. Tina smirked. I just wanted a peek. What I got was a treasure map. Before she could run, Lisa was on her feet. She did not chase. She simply raised her hand. The air around Tina thickened. The hacker stumbled as if walking through syrup. Her device sparked. Then died. How did you do that? Tina whispered. The Starweaver protects itself, Lisa said, walking forward. And Meshi did not hurt Tina. She erased the data from the device and wiped the hacker's short-term memory of the last hour. When Tina woke, she was back at her ship with no memory of Mars, only a strange feeling of peace and a single silver leaf in her pocket. Something that did not grow on Marskol was furious. He realized force and tricks would not work, so he changed tactics. He went public. Using fake sources and doctored footage, he claimed Lisa Morales was infected by an alien hive mind, that she was slowly replacing human thought with alien control. Fear spread fast. Protests erupted outside Harmony Initiative buildings. News channels debated whether she should be quarantined or studied. Lisa watched it all from her quarters. The weight of the Starweaver felt heavier now, not because of the lies but because of the fear behind them. She understood it. Humans feared what they could not control. The Kalari had feared it too, and a message came from an unexpected source. It was from Admiral Nora Bell, a retired fleet officer known for her integrity. She had read Lisa's full report, the unedited one, and believed her. She offered her a safe place. A hidden research station near Pluto where the Starweaver's knowledge could be shared without interference. Lisa accepted. The journey took 3 weeks. The Orion flew silent. No comms, no transponder. Halfway there, Cole made his final move. He hired a private warship, the Iron Maw, and ambushed them in the Kuiper Belt. The Maw was fast, heavily armed, and painted black like a predator. Lisa stood on the bridge calm. Her crew looked to her for orders. We do not fight, she said. We show them. She activated the Starweaver's core light poured from the Orion. Not blinding, but soft golden. It spread through space like ripples in water. The Iron Maw's weapons powered down. Their engines stuttered. Even their comms filled not with static, but with music. Gentle harmonic tones that made the crew drop to their knees in awe. On the Maw's bridge, Cole stared at his screens in horror. What is this? His pilot whispered. It feels like forgiveness. Lisa's voice came through their speakers, clear and kind. Garrett Cole. You do not need to own this light. You only need to let it in. Cole screamed and tried to fire, but the ship would not obey. The Starweaver had not disabled it. It had reminded it of what it truly was, not a weapon, but a vessel for life. In the end, Cole surrendered. Not out of fear, but because for the first time in his life he felt seen not as a thief, but as a lonely man chasing meaning in the wrong places. At the Pluto station, Admiral Bell welcomed them. The facility was small but secure. Scientists from 6 nations waited, eager but respectful. Lisa began to teach. She showed them how the Kalari healed wounds with sound, how they grew food from starlight, how they resolved conflict by sharing dreams. It was not magic. It was science shaped by empathy. Years passed. Lisa never aged like others. Her hair stayed dark, her eyes bright. Some said the Starweaver kept her young. Others said she had simply found her purpose. She never married. She never had children of her own. But in a way, she became mother to a new way of thinking. Schools taught balance before power. Ships carried diplomats, not soldiers. And on quiet nights, people looked up at the stars, not with fear, but with wonder. One evening, Lisa stood on the station's observation deck. The sun was a distant spark. Pluto's icy surface glowed blue below. She closed her eyes and let the Starweaver sing. Zira's voice came not as a memory, but as a feeling. You did well, Issa smiled. We did well, and in that moment, human and Kailari were no longer 2 species, but one spirit walking the long road toward the light. The universe was vast and full of dangers, but also full of songs, waiting to be heard, and Lisa Morales would keep singing until her last breath. Centuries passed, and the name Lisa Morales became a whisper in the wind. A story told by elders to children who gazed at the stars with wide eyes. The Balance Council had grown into a living network of worlds not ruled by laws but guided by shared care. Cities floated among the clouds of Venus, gardens bloomed in the canyons of Mars and on Earth. Forests reclaimed the old battlefields. No one remembered the wars clearly, only that they ended when a woman chose to sing instead of fight. But peace is never final. Deep in the outer spiral, a new hunger stirred, not for land or power, but for silence. A species called the Virex had evolved in the cold void between galaxies. They fed on thought. Not flesh or energy, but the very act of imagining. They moved like shadows through space, leaving behind hollowed worlds where minds had gone quiet. No screams, no ruins, just stillness. Empty eyes staring at unmoving skies. The Balance Council detected the first silence on a small colony near Sirius. A world of poets and musicians went dark. No signals, no songs. When a scout ship arrived, its crew found everyone alive but unmoving. They breathed. They blinked, but their thoughts were gone. Panic flickered through the network. Old fears rose like ghosts. Some called for walls, for weapons, for hiding. But the council remembered Lisa's lesson. Fear builds cages. Only connection builds bridges. They sent no armies. They sent a child. Her name was Alara, and she was 12. She had been born under the harmony tree on the war moon, the one grown from Lisa's crystal seed. Her hair was dark like Lisa's, and her eyes held the same quiet depth. She did not carry weapons. She carried a small flute carved from silver wood and a book of lullabies written in both human and Kalari script. Their ship, the Whisper, was small and white-shaped like a falling leaf. It held no weapons, no shields, only a core that hummed with the same frequency as the Starweaver's song. Alara flew alone toward the silence. As she neared the Sirius system, the Whisper's lights dimmed. The hum in its core grew faint. Even her own thoughts felt muffled as if wrapped in thick cloth. She landed on the silent world and stepped onto soil that felt cold despite the sun. The people stood in the streets frozen. Their faces were calm but empty. Alara walked among them, flute in hand. She did not speak. She played the first note was soft like a breath. It hung in the air, trembling. Nothing happened. She played again, louder this time, weaving in the Kalari lullaby Lisa had once sung. Still nothing. Then a child in the crowd blinked slowly. A tear rolled down her cheek. Alara kept playing. Note by note, the song pushed back the silence. Color returned to the world. People gasped as if waking from a long sleep. They wept, hugged each other, and looked at Alara with wonder. But the Virex were not gone. They watched from the dark edges of the system, drawn not by sound, but by the return of thought. They were not monsters with teeth and claws. They were absence given form, shifting shapes of pure negation. They did not hate. They simply consumed because it was their nature. Alara knew she could not fight them, so she did the only thing Lisa would have done. She invited them, and standing on a hill under twin moons, she played a new song. Not a lullaby, but a question. It asked, "Why are you hungry? What do you seek? What have you lost?" The Virex paused. For the first time in their existence, they felt something other than hunger. They felt seen. One drifted closer, its form rippling like smoke. It reached out, not to take but to touch. Alara did not flinch. She held out her hand and let the silence brush her skin. In that moment she understood the Virex were not born to consume. They were broken. Long ago their creators had tried to build perfect minds. Thought without pain, without doubt, without fear. But they removed too much. They left only hunger for what they could never have. Alara's song offered them something new. Not fullness, but companionship. She taught them to listen, not to take thoughts, but to hear them, to sit with joy without eating it, to witness sorrow without swallowing it. It was slow work. Many Virex resisted. Some fled back into the void. But a few stayed. They learned to hum back on Earth. The council watched in awe. A child had done what fleets could not. Not by winning, but by welcoming. Alara did not return home right away. She traveled with the Virex into the deep dark. She showed them how to tend gardens of light, how to weave stories from starlight, how to rest without consuming. In return, they taught her the beauty of stillness, the space between notes where meaning grows. Years passed, the Virex changed. They no longer fed on thought. They became guardians of quiet. They helped meditative worlds find peace. They sat with the grieving and held space for healing. They were no longer the silence, but the breath. Before the song, Alara grew older. But like Lisa, she aged slowly. Her hair turned silver, but her eyes stayed bright. She never claimed to be special. She said only that she listened. One day she returned to the war moon, now called Harmony Rise. The tree from Lisa's seed had grown into a forest. Its leaves shimmered with soft light, and its roots ran deep into the planet's core. Alara walked beneath its branches and found an old woman sitting by a stream. It was Maya Cruz, now over 200 years old, kept alive by Kalari bioharmony. She smiled when she saw Alara. "You came back." "I followed the song," Alara said. They sat in comfortable silence for a long time. Then Mia handed her a small box made of woven light. "Lisa left this for the one who would come after her. She said you would know when to open it." Alara opened the box. Inside was a single seed glowing faintly blue, and a note written in simple words, "Plant this where fear is loudest." Alara knew where to goon the edge of known space near the ruins of an old battle station. A new conflict brewed. Two factions argued over an ancient artifact they believed held power. Ships gathered. Weapons charged. Old hatreds flared. Alara arrived in the Whispers. She landed between the fleets and walked onto the barren rock of the station. No one fired. Something in her presence stilled the storm. She knelt and planted the seed. Then she played her flute. The song was old and new at once. It held Lisa's courage, Zyra's wisdom, Alara's hope. The seed sprouted fast. Roots spread through metal and stone. Branches reached for the stars. Flowers bloomed that glowed with soft light and released a scent that calmed even the angriest heart. The commanders stepped out of their ships. They looked at the tree, then at each other. Without words, they lowered their weapons. The artifact they fought over was forgotten. It was just a rock. The real power had always been in the choice to stop. Alara stayed until the first fruit ripened. She gave one to each side and watched them share it like a piecemeal. When she left, the station was no longer a ruin. It was a garden back on Harmony Rise. She planted another seed from the box, then another. Soon the whole moon was covered in light trees, each one a beacon of balance. She never sought fame. She lived quietly, teaching children how to listen to the wind, to the stars, to each other. One evening, as she sat beneath the oldest tree, she felt a familiar hum, not from the Star Weaver. That light had faded into the cosmos long ago, but from the universe itself. A new signal pulsed from the void beyond. Andromeda, soft, rhythmic, and achingly familiar. Lara smiled. She was old now, but her spirit was young. She called for the whisper. Her journey was not over. It never would be, as long as there were ears to hear, hearts to open, and songs to share. The work would continue. She stepped aboard the leaf-shaped ship and looked back one last time at the glowing forest, the children laughing, the elders telling stories of a woman who carried light in her hands. Then she flew into the dark, not to conquer, not to save, but to listen, and in that act of quiet courage, the universe found its next breath. The story of Lisa Morales had not ended. It had only grown new roots, and Alara would carry them further than stars. The years turned, and Lisa Morales became more legend than woman. Children on Mars drew pictures of her with silver halos. Poets on Earth wrote verses about the woman who carried a dead star in her chest. But Lisa herself remained quiet. She lived in the Pluto station not as a leader, but as a listener. She walked its halls barefoot like Zyra once had, and spoke to anyone who came with honest questions. She never demanded belief, only openness. Then came the signal. It was faint at first, a whisper in the deep static beyond the Oort cloud. Not a distress call this time, but a song. Soft, rhythmic, and achingly familiar. The Starweaver inside Lisa stirred before any machine could detect it. Her hands trembled as she pulled up the data stream. The pattern matched Kaelari harmonic resonance, but it was not a recording. It was livesome. One was out there. Admiral Nora Bell, now gray-haired but sharp-eyed, stood beside her on the observation deck. "You think it's another survivor?" Lisa shook her head slowly. Zyra said she was the last. But the Kalari seeded life across 1,000 worlds. Maybe one of them remembered. They prepared the Orion for one last journey, not as a warship or a scout, but as a messenger. They loaded it with gifts. Earth seeds, Mars-like, and recordings of human music and children's laughter. Lisa insisted on going alone. The Starweaver would guide her. No weapons, no armor, just trust. As the ship slipped past the edge of known space, the song grew stronger. It led her not to a planet, but to a nebula shaped like a coiled serpent. Inside its violet clouds floated a structure made of living crystal. It pulsed with the same rhythm as the Starweaver in her mind. Lisa docked without hesitation. The air inside was warm and smelled of ozone and blossoms. The walls breathed. She walked down a corridor that shifted color with her mood. Blue for calm, gold for wonder. At the center of the structure, she found not a person, but a pool of liquid light. It rose as she approached, forming a shape that mirrored Zira's face. "You returned," the light said in Zira's voice. "I followed the song," Lisa replied. The pool shimmered. "We are not Kaelari. We are their children. Grown from seeds they scattered before the fall. We have waited cycles for one who carries the true song." Lisa knelt by the pool. "You knew I would come," we hoped. The Kaelari did not die. They transformed. Their minds merged with the fabric of space to become guardians of balance. Zira was the last physical form. "You carry her echo. We carry her purpose." Tears filled Lisa's eyes. "I tried to share it. But humans are slow to learn." "They are learning," the light said gently. "We watch. We see your schools, your quiet revolutions, your artists painting stars with kindness. It is enough." Liza stayed for weeks. She taught the light beings about human joy and human grief. They showed her how the Kalari now live. Not in bodies, but in the spaces between atoms, in the hum of galaxies, in the silence after a storm. They were not gone. They had simply changed shape. When she returned to Pluto, she brought back a single crystal seed. It glowed softly in her palm. "Plant it where hope is thin," she was told. She chose a war-torn moon in the Perseus Arm where humans and colonists had fought for decades over water rights. She landed alone, walked into the center of the battlefield, and knelt in the dust. Soldiers on both sides raised their weapons but did not fire. Something in her presence stilled them. She placed the seed in the cracked earth and covered it with her hands. Then she sang. It was not a human song. It was the Kalari lullaby, the one Zira had left in her bones. The ground trembled. Green shoots burst through the soil. Within hours, trees with silver leaves grew tall and strong. Their roots purified the poisoned wells. Their fruit healed the sick. The soldiers dropped their guns and wept. News spread faster than war ever had. The moon became a sanctuary. People came not to fight but to listen. Lisa never claimed credit. She simply said the universe gives when we stop taking back on Earth. The Harmony Initiative became the Balance Council. Its members were not politicians but teachers, healers, farmers, and children. They met under open skies and made decisions by consensus, not command. Laws changed. Weapons factories became schools. Borders faded not by force but by shared need. Lisa watched it all with quiet pride. But the Starweaver inside her grew restless again. One night, as she stood on the station's deck watching Saturn's rings catch the distant sun, she felt a new pull. Not a song this time, but a question. It came from the void between galaxies where no ship had ever gone. The Kalari had not just seeded life. They had placed sentinels, beings of pure thought meant to wake if the universe tipped too far toward chaos. One of them was calling. Lisa knew what she had to do. She gathered her closest friends, Nora Bell, now over 90 but still sharp, Tina Ross, the former hacker who now taught neural ethics, and a young botanist named Mia Cruz who had grown the first Earth flower on Pluto. She told them she was leaving, not forever, she said, but for a long time they did not try to stop her. They knew her path was not theirs. The Orion was refitted one last time. No weapons, no cargo hold, just a single chamber filled with light and memory. Lisa stepped aboard wearing simple clothes and bare feet. She touched the console and the ship hummed like an old friend. As she passed the orbit of Neptune, she looked back at the solar system. It was small now, just a cluster of pale dots, but she could feel the lives within it. The child learning to share, the farmer planting peace, the artist painting stars with kindness. She smiled. Orion jumped into the deep. For months she traveled through emptiness so vast it made time feel meaningless. She slept little. The Starweaver kept her alive, feeding her with light and memory. She dreamed of Zira walking through gardens of sound. She dreamed of human children laughing under alien suns. Then she saw a sphere of pure darkness floating in the void. Not a black hole, but something older. It absorbed light, sound, thought. It was the Sentinel, and it was broken. Lisa approached slowly. The Orion systems flickered. Her own mind grew foggy. The Starweaver dimmed. "You are too late." A voice echoed in the dark. "Chaos has already won," Elisa whispered. "Balance is never too late." She opened the ship's core and let the Starweaver flow out. Not as data, but as presence, as song. As sacrifice light erupted from the Orion, wrapping around the dark sphere. The void resisted. It screamed in silence. But Lisa held on. She poured every memory, every hope, every human and Kailari dream into the breach. For 3 days she burned. On the fourth, the darkness softened. Cracks of gold appeared across its surface. Then it bloomed like a flower opening in slow motion. The Sentinel transformed. It became a star not of fire but of harmony. Its light reached across galaxies, touching every world that had ever known war or fear or loneliness. On Earth, people stopped in the streets. They looked up and felt something shift inside them. Not a command, but a choice. On the war moon, children planted new seeds without being told. On Mars, an old hacker named Tina held her granddaughter and sang a lullaby she did not remember learning. And in the Pluto station, Nora Bell closed her eyes and smiled. She knew Lisa was gone, but also everywhere. The Orion drifted empty now, its mission complete. But in the heart of the new star, a single voice remained, not human, not Kailari, but both. It whispered to the universe, not in words, but in feeling. You are not alone. And for the first time in eons, the cosmos listened. Lisa Morales had not died. She had become the bridge, the song, the quiet light between the stars that reminds all living things to choose kindness over fear. Her name faded from history books, but her spirit lived in every act of courage, every shared meal, every hand held in the dark. The universe was still vast and full of dangers, but now it was also full of here, and that was enough. Alara's ship. The Whisper sailed through the velvet dark beyond Andromeda, its white hull catching the faint glow of distant quasars. She did not know what waited in the void, only that the song called and she must answer. The flute rested in her lap, warm from her hands. The seed box sat open beside her, empty now. All its seeds had been planted across the galaxy, each one a quiet rebellion against fear. After weeks of travel, the whisper entered a region where stars grew sparse and space itself felt thin like worn fabric. Here the signal was strongest, not a melody but a pulse steady and slow like a sleeping heart. Alara followed it to a place where 3 dead stars circled one another in silent dance. At their center floated a structure made of woven light and shadow. It was not built. It was grown. Alara docked without hesitation. The air inside smelled of rain and old paper. The walls shifted as she walked, showing scenes from forgotten worlds. Cities of glass, oceans of liquid light, beings with wings of thought. She knew then this was a memory vault left by the first singers, the ones who came before even the K-Lariat. The heart of the vault, she found a pool of still water. Its surface reflected not her face but Lisa Morales standing on the Pluto station years ago. Eyes closed, hands open. "You came," the reflection said. "I heard the call." Alara replied as the water rippled and the image changed to Zira, silver skin glowing in the Starweaver's light. "We left this place as a final gift," the water said. "Not for knowledge but for choice. Inside this vault is the sum of all songs ever sung. Joy, grief, love, rage. To take it is to carry every pain, every hope of every being who ever lived. Most would break under the weight, but you will not." "Why me?" Alara asked. "Because you do not seek to fix the universe," she said. "You seek to sit with it." Alara knelt by the pool. She did not reach in. She waited. The water rose and touched her forehead. Warmth spread through her, not sharp but deep like roots finding soil. Memories flooded her, not as images but as feelings. She felt the first Kalari child laugh. She felt a human mother hold her newborn in a bombed city. She felt a Virex taste silence and choose to listen instead. She felt Lisa's last breath as she became starlight. It did not hurt. It healed. When it ended, Alara stood changed. Her eyes held galaxies. Her voice carried echoes of 1,000 tongues, but her heart remained soft. The vault began to fade, its purpose fulfilled. As Alara walked back to the whisper, the structure dissolved into light and scattered across the void. She returned not to Harmony Rise but to a world no one remembered. It was small and gray, orbiting a dying sun. Its people lived underground in tunnels lit by bioluminescent moss. They had forgotten the sky. They had forgotten songs. They spoke in whispers and never touched for fear of stealing warmth. Alara landed her ship in a dry riverbed and walked into their city. They saw her as a ghost. Some fled. Others watched from cracks in the walls. A child no older than 5 stepped forward holding a rusted toy. "Who are you?" the child asked. "I am a listener," Alara said. She sat in the center of the main tunnel and played her flute. The notes were simple, but they carried the weight of all she had learned. The people listened not because they trusted her but because they had forgotten how to stop. One by one they crept closer. An old woman touched the wall and felt it hum. A man looked up and saw for the first time that the tunnel ceiling was carved with stars. A young couple held hands and did not let go. Alara stayed for years. He taught them to sing again. Not perfect songs, but honest ones. They sang of hunger, of loss, of small joys like warm bread and clean water. They sang until their voices cracked, then sang some more. The moss on the walls glowed brighter with every note. When she left, they walked her to the surface. They stood under the pale sun and watched her ship rise into the sky. Then they turned to each other and began a new song. Alara's next stop was a gas giant where floating cities drifted in golden clouds. These people had everything. Endless energy, perfect health, art that moved on its own. But they were bored. They played games with real pain. They bet lives like coins. They had forgotten that joy needs sorrow to have meaning. Alara did not preach. She simply asked them to listen. She played a song of a dying flower, of a last breath, of silence after a storm. At first they laughed. Then they cried. Then they changed. They dismantled their games. They built hospitals not for profit but for care. They wrote songs not for fame but for healing. Word of the listener spread not as a savior but as a mirror. She showed people what they already knew but had forgotten. One day a message reached her from the Balance Council. A new threat had emerged not from outside but from within. A faction called the Pure had risen. They believed harmony was weakness. They wanted to erase all pain by erasing choice. They built machines that rewrote minds to feel only calm. Only obedience. They called it peace. Alara. Return to Earth? The council met her in the old garden where Lisa once walked. The trees were taller now, their silver leaves casting dappled light on stone paths. "They want to stop us from feeling," the council had said. "They say pain is the enemy." "Pain is the teacher," Alara replied. She went to the Pure city not with an army but with a single flute. The city was clean and quiet. People moved in perfect lines, faces blank. No laughter, no tears, no arguments. The air smelled sterile. Alara sat in the central square and played. At first no one stopped. They walked around her like she was a rock in a stream. But the song seeped into the walls, into the air, into their bones. A woman paused. Her hand trembled. She touched her cheek and found it wet. Then a man dropped to his knees and sobbed for the first time in years. The pure leaders sent guards. They tried to silence her, but their hands shook as they raised their weapons. One guard lowered his rifle and asked, "What is this feeling?" "It is being alive," Alara said. The machines were shut down not by force but by choice. People walked out of the calm and into the messy, beautiful storm of real life. The pure did not vanish. Some still longed for quiet. But now they had a choice. Alara stayed until the first market opened in the city. Not for goods but for stories. People sat in circles and shared their pain, their joy, their confusion. It was messy, loud, and alive. Years passed. Alara grew older, but like Lisa and Zyra before her, she did not fade. She became part of the song itself. Children claimed they saw her in dreams, guiding them through nightmares. Farmers said their crops grew sweeter when they sang while planting. Even the Virex, now gentle guardians of quiet, sent her thoughts, like soft rain one evening as she sat on a cliff overlooking an ocean of liquid methane on a distant moon. She felt the song shift, not a call. This time, but a farewell. The universe was changing again. Not through war or plague, but through growth. New minds were rising, not human, not Kaelari, not Virex, but something new. They did not need a listener. They were learning to listen to each other. Alara knew her time was ending. She returned to Harmony Rise. The forest of light trees covered the moon now. Their glow could be seen from orbit. She walked beneath their branches one last time, touching each trunk like an old friend in the center of the forest. She found a clear pool fed by a silver stream. She knelt and looked into the water. Her reflection showed. Not an old woman, but Lisa, Zira, Alara, and countless others woven. Together, it is time, the water said. Alara smiled. She lay down on the mossy bank and closed her eyes. The flute rested on her chest. The trees dimmed, then brightened, in rhythm with her breath. When her breath stopped, the flute floated into the air and dissolved. Into light, the trees sang not a song of loss, but of continuation. From that day on, anyone who walked through the forest heard whispers in the leaves. Not commands, not lessons, but questions. What will you carry? What will you share? What song will you leave behind? The Balance Council did not name a successor. They knew the work was no longer one person's burden. It belonged to everyone on Earth. A child picked up a stick and drew a star in the dirt, and Mars, a poet, wrote a verse about quiet courage. And the war moon, now called Songrise of Virex, sat with a grieving elder and held space for tears. The universe was still vast and full of unknowns, but it was no longer alone. Alara had not died. She had become the question that keeps hearts open, and in every act of kindness, in every shared silence, in every note sung with truth, her spirit lived. The story that began with a nude alien princess and a human captain had grown beyond names, beyond ships, beyond stars. It had become the breath of the cosmos itself, and it would never end.